I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Campbell City Council for Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. And we'll start with roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Hines.
Present.
Councilmember Scuzola, absent. Vice Mayor Bybee.
Present.
Mayor Furtado.
Here. Just before we have the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, I would like to read the following statement. In recent weeks, a few of our neighboring cities have been subjected to disruptive racist verbal attacks by anonymous callers during virtual public comments. Again, these are people who call in to the meeting. The city of Campbell is fully committed to racial, religious, and cultural equity and justice as we strive to create a welcoming, safe, and inclusive community for all. The council welcomes respectful, non-threatening public comments on matters within our jurisdiction. Comments deemed otherwise pursuant to the council's statement of values and the government code may be grounds for terminating a speaker's comment period. With that, I would like to ask Jennifer Keaton, in recognition of National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, and she is our supervisor in that department for the police department, in charge of all dispatchers, to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll have a comment to make if you'll stay there.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll come down there in a moment if you'll just As we observe National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, we are honored, as I mentioned, to have the Campbell Police Department dispatchers join us this evening. These individuals, as you may know, are very dedicated professionals who work in the background. They're very well trained. They're responsible for answering all of the 911 calls. And of course, before the call comes in, they have no idea who or what the nature of the emergency is. They have to quickly evaluate exactly what the emergency is. If necessary, provide immediate information in terms of first aid and so on to the caller and reassurance, as well as immediately dispatching police and fire personnel as appropriate to the emergency, providing our emergency service personnel with brief comments as to the nature of the emergency so they are somewhat prepared on their way to the emergency. So it's a pleasure for us to, on behalf of the council, to proclaim the week of April 12th through 18th as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in the city of Campbell, and present Jennifer with a proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of your colleagues for leading us in the pledge. At least we're going to get a new building for you and a new dispatch center shortly. Yeah, on behalf of the city council, I present you with resolution just for recognizing the work and very much. Jennifer, just before you leave, I neglected to invite you to say some comments yourself if you wish. I knew she was trying to get away quickly, so please, thank you.
I just want to thank the council for all their support of the department over the years. We absolutely love this Campbell community. And I think we have such a great team, and we love offering the highest level of customer service in the county. We see it year after year. So thank you for your continued support and for all of the community, everything you've done for us. See it in your support of our beautiful new building. Dispatch is getting out of the bunker. So we're so excited. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, Jennifer. If my colleagues have some comments to make.
If I may just, you're the first line of contact. So just tremendous work that you and the whole team do. So really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you as well. It hasn't been too frequent, but I've had to call in a few times and the response has always been incredibly professional. And I think that's exactly the same values, whether it's council or member of the public, doesn't matter. You get the same level of customer service as a member of the community. Thank you.
And Jennifer and all your colleagues, I know that you have a difficult and stressful job, and you all do without skipping a beat, always getting people to the resources to the appropriate place and at the right moment. So I want to thank you for that. And I just always want to say that too, that you're always professional, always empathetic, have a kind ear when people are in stress. And that's so important when people are in distress. And I also want to go beyond and thank you all for your involvement in the community. I know you're always out there at the music festival and the Creepy Crawler, and making a presence and interacting with our community. And that's so important too. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Those are such kind words. I appreciate it.
Thank you again. I'd also like to take the opportunity to offer a proclamation declaring April 15th as National Laundry Day. You know, I think laundry is something that most of us look at as a chore that we have to do but don't necessarily want to do. But you know, there are many people in our country and the world who don't have access to clean clothing, who are homeless and are not able to care for themselves in this very basic way. And having access to clean clothing, linens, and so on plays an important public health role, adds to individuals' personal dignity and their overall quality of life. And it's fortunate there are a number of volunteers available who are willing to help others and provide a simple service of clean clothing, which respects their dignity as human beings. And so we are proclaiming April 15th as National Laundry Day. And the individual who is going to speak on this matter, if she's available, is Susan Reams. Is she present? She is present. Susan, good evening. And please go ahead and offer some remarks if you'd like.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Susan, are you
Thank
present?
you, Campbell City Council. I am honored to share a brief overview of the Little Free Laundry Service and to recognize the importance of National Laundry Day on April 15th. The Little Free Laundry Service is the community-driven initiative dedicated to addressing laundry insecurity by providing free access to laundry services for individuals and families in need. Through simple acts of kindness, we aim to restore dignity, promote health, and uplift members of the community who may be struggling. National Laundry Day, observed on April 15th, brings awareness to the critical need for clean clothing and the barriers many face in accessing basic laundry needs. It is a day to come together, inspire compassion, and take meaningful action to support one another. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Campbell City Council for your support, leadership, and commitment to community well-being. Your recognition and encouragement help amplify this mission and make a lasting difference in the lives of those we serve. Thank you for standing with us to promote dignity, compassion, and community care. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll be mailing you the resolution and proclamation from the mayor's office. Thank you. We have no communications or petitions, and we now go to oral requests. From the speaker cards that I have here, I first of all want to indicate that I believe many of you are here to speak about the housing issues. And I just wanted to mention that we have received your letters and emails, communication to the council. We respect your opinion, and we invite you to speak tonight as well. I also just want to let you know that in terms of progress, we have been working with our city staff, city manager, and our director of planning, as well as our city attorney, to take a good hard look at this whole matter. We're probably one of the first cities that has addressed this matter as compared to other cities where this law is just being evaluated right now. We do plan to take into consideration not only your comments, but I just wanted you to know that, and we will agendize this at a future meeting, and more than likely right now, we're planning for the second meeting in May to have this item agendized officially so that we can discuss it more fully. Tonight, of course, we can take public comment, and I just wanted to make those few introductory comments just to assure you that while we can't really discuss your comments tonight, I want you to know that we appreciate and respect your comments, and that we are sincere about looking into this matter and what could or should be done about the interim ordinance. And it is just an interim ordinance that we passed. So with that introduction, we'll start with public comments, and I'll invite the speakers to come up, and you have up to 2 minutes. If someone has already made remarks very similar to what you wanted to say, you may simply indicate that without necessarily, it's up to you, repeating what has been said before, but I'll leave that judgment up to you. So first, and please excuse me if I mispronounce anyone's name, Karen Holmes.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. We've lived on the corner of Peggy Avenue and Steinway for about 26 years now. Have enjoyed the peace and the quiet and the mixed neighborhood, and it's just a really beautiful place to live. I saw just last night that this was happening, this townhouse project, and there was a picture of the proposal and the proposed units. The things that struck me were, it's really, really ugly. It looks like a government housing project in the middle of places where people have spent everything they have on very fancy houses and would like to enjoy them. The height request, a 28-foot peaked roof on a single family home is one thing. 35 feet of a solid wall of buildings taking up most of the lot, and the whole width of it, it's much bigger than anything in the neighborhood. If you walk that neighborhood blocks in every direction, there is nothing like this. And I'm really not have a problem with starter homes, but it should fit in, it should be attractive. It shouldn't look like a government housing project. And the other thing is, there are a lot of people who benefit from this: the state, the county, the city, the developer, the people that move in. There are a few homeowners right there at ground zero, and their big investment is being threatened, and it's hard. And there should be some, like, just advance notice here, some consideration for the people that this is a very big change. And I really think that they could do better. They could do something more attractive that fits the neighborhood much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we have a lot of speakers, I do request that you not show applause after each speaker. And I'd like to call Rajesh Durajian.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Rajesh Durajian, and I'm a resident of Campbell. I moved here in 2022 with my wife and daughter after 15 years in Saratoga. We chose Campbell for what makes it special: walkable neighborhood, a close-knit community, and a city that prides itself in its heritage. I'm not here against housing, just want to make that very clear. I'm here to ask that it be done thoughtfully with neighbors in the conversation. Under SB 1123 and Campbell City Ordinance 2334 adopted in July 2025, developers can apply to demolish a single family home and replace it with up to 9 units. The city must approve within 60 days, no public hearing, no notifications, and to adjacent neighbors, no right of appeal. I'm sure some of you have already heard from city residents on this issue. A number of Campbell residents, myself included, have built a website called campbellcivicvoice.org to make Campbell residents aware of the proposed developments. Submitted plans show up to 35 feet tall buildings, 3 stories, directly overlooking neighbors' yards and windows. 8 of these 15 projects are in single-family residential zones, R1 zones. I found out this through neighbors and not through the city. My 3 asks today are: 1, pause new approvals under Ordinance 2334 for genuine community input. 2, apply SB 1123's vacancy standard as written, not satisfied, as written, but not satisfied by a future promise of demolition to an existing home. 3, notify adjacent neighbors when application is filed. I know the state law may not require it, but it's the right thing to do. Thank you for your time and your service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to now invite Roy DiVittorio to speak.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Mayor, taking the time here again. Obviously, I'm talking about the same projects and stuff. I wanted to kind of know how many homes is the state forcing Campbell to build and in what time frame? Probably Bob might know more, you know, because it seems like we're rushing everything under the table. No, obviously, most people here just heard about this project, and we just don't feel like, hey, Campbell, are you looking out for your citizens or your residents, or are you just getting the money coming in from these developers? These developers are coming in and buying these lots and, you know, going through. I know Campbell gets some money from the state or whatever, but it just seems like you're completely ignoring the residents. And I think what bothers me is, you know, how I know the state doesn't, require it, the public hearings like this, or the neighbors to be notified, but how, as council members of the city that we've elected you and you live and try to keep it a city, let it go and not say, okay, we have X amount of houses we're supposed to build. We have X amount of time we're supposed to build them in. Let's sit down and make a plan. Where's the city plan? And I can't believe the city plan is popping 8, 9 homes here, then pick another spot here, popping 9 homes, because to me, that's just not a plan. And you're like, on Walnut, they're planning on doing 18 homes, probably average 36 cars. Where are they gonna park? You know, we got the schools right down the street. You know, we got kids walking a lot of people walking their dog, and you're gonna have all these cars. I just felt like there's no consideration. And I just happened to see your sign, City of Campbell, the Orchard City. And I'm like, we're getting real close to being San Francisco. So just, those are my thoughts.
Although we aren't able to really discuss this tonight, I will make a brief comment on this whole matter. First of all, in the state of California, it's the Department of Housing that assigns to the regional planning agencies, and in this case to the Association of Bay Area Governments, a required number of houses that we in all the cities are required to zone for. Now, we don't own the property, so we cannot direct that that housing be built. That is a pure negotiation between a developer and the property owner if the two of them want to come together and decide that one wants to sell and one wants to buy. If they agree on a price, then of course it's up to the developer to secure their construction loans and comply with all the city codes and requirements. But we are required to zone for a certain number. Most cities are not able to achieve that number because it's a very high number for every city. And like I said, we don't own the property, so we don't force sales. The other thing is, I'll state briefly, the state of California in recent years has passed many laws, quite frankly, oftentimes overlapping and confusing, that has taken away local jurisdiction in a number of matters and prevented us from, designating a certain area or a certain number of homes for a given size piece of property. So that decision in many areas has been preempted from us. And so we're required under ministerial rules, and I don't want to get into too much detail, to allow these things to happen. Not that we want to or we're planning, and we don't, we're not looking to make extra money by that route. But anyway, those are my brief comments. Like I said, it's not subject to discussion tonight, but I felt as a matter of information, I could at least make this comment to you, so.
Right. I think maybe there could have been more effort into zoning it, certain things,
Yeah,
Or
it is a part of
little
the
bit of
general
pushback
plan.
to maybe
The
zone.
housing, the planning department does work with the city's general plan. And like I said, to designate the housing areas, but it is a requirement that we do so in order to have our housing element certified by the state of California, which is another requirement. So we have many unfortunate state requirements that we don't like either. So, thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'd like to call Vung Park.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Jung Park. Since my neighbors have already kind of explained the flaws with the ordinance 2334, I don't want to repeat their points, but I do want to address like why Campbell is the only city doing this in the Bay Area. We know this unique interpretation was created because the city feared developers would prematurely, bulldoze homes and leave lightly dirt lots behind. But in your attempt to prevent empty lots, I think you have accidentally stripped, the established neighborhoods of their protections entirely. My wife and I are raising our 7-year-old son here because we believe in this community. We cannot afford to be blindsided by this type of decision. And discussing this issue on May 5th, was that the right date? I feel like that's a little bit too late. My request is to put a pause on some of the projects that are in progress on review, so that, the city has time to actually kind of look back into the ordinance issue and, some of the complaints that we're all talking about. So yeah, that would be, my statement. Yeah, thank you.
I would like to call Rodney Asiano.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. Yes, I'm here to comment on the residential project permits on Walnut Drive, 1573, that property, and the 661 Parr Avenue. It does regard the 18 homes that are replacing the 2 homes. And so this is such a rapid growth for our residential street. With 19 houses in the block, this project doubles the number of families on our street. And so this is doubling the traffic. Like as mentioned before, we're expecting 36 additional cars. The schools nearby are Village Elementary and Capri Elementary, and they're only a couple streets away in an already high traffic zone. The 18 buildings that are going to be planned to be built are 3 stories high, overlooking my neighbors who have already spoke, looking into their backyards and losing their privacy. These 3-story buildings, they don't reflect the character of the surrounding neighborhood and are not compatible with the surrounding homes. These permits will allow the demolition of well-established trees that have been there since I was a child in 1976. I've lived in Campbell for over 50 years on Walnut Drive, and I've never seen such neighborhood growth as fast as this. It feels disappointing, inconsiderate of the neighbors and community and the environment. It makes me question the current values that we hold here in Campbell. We were a slow growth city for decades, but now I see high density construction everywhere. The 590 Maxwell units on South Bascom, 90 home development at 600 East Campbell, the 290 homes on Tech Parkway, turning office buildings into homes. As teachers, my wife and I watched yearly trend of declining enrollment in schools. People have been leaving California and Santa Clara. 15 schools are slated for closure. So we're building homes for less families. And so I hope that we maintain and return to values that we can maintain slow growth here in Campbell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Ellen Cronover.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to the city council. We all appreciate all your work here in Campbell, and we all love this city. That's what we can, I think, all attest to. And I think we're all pretty much for starter homes, but starter homes that are well-designed and proportional to our neighborhoods. Something with a craftsman look or a cottage look. This does not look like a starter home. This is the renderings. This is the renderings from the 1170 Steinway. This looks like apartment buildings. And at that, apartment buildings may be poorly designed or basically like shoeboxes turned on in with no articulation, no changing roof lines. And to see it in proportion for massing, this is my single-story home in Campbell, and this is the 35-foot box. So they're not even individual, they're massed. These townhomes are in one big building. They're just poorly designed. Let's get them redesigned. Let's bring another architecture firm in who can design these correctly. Alpha X, who's the developer, is known for like maximizing square footage. They did a project on Mercury 300 Reading Street in Campbell, and the project was the first in California approved by SB 684. It squeezed townhomes into a space that bypassed full local review. The project sets a precedent for maximizing units and not matching neighborhood scale. So basically, we just want well-designed starter homes, and there has to be architectural review. I mean, do you guys like the way those buildings look, council members? Do you care for them?
I'm sorry, but we're not going to discuss.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my bad. Okay. Oh, no, I don't want to put you in a thing. And it's also clear, yeah, that, oh, my time's up. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'd like to call Quing Zhan.
Dear Mayor and council members, it's nice to meet you. My name is Ching. I here want to first start by saying that I support high density housing and understand there's constraints and superimposed on the city. I'm here to address and request a legal review of the eligibility of starter home projects for 61 Par and 5073 Walnut. I appreciate the progress you announced earlier, Mayor. I would like to redirect your attention to the specifics of the terms. According to State Bill 1123, the vacant status of the lot is a contemporaneous requirement, which means the lot must be vacant, abandoned, or uninhabitable at the time of application. I'd like to point out that there's a stark internal contradiction to the ordinance 2334. In section 3, vacant means a lot is without permanent structure unless the permanent structure is abandoned or uninhabitable. This is consistent with State Bill 1123. However, in section 4C on page 4, it reads, a parcel shall be eligible for starter home project if it will be vacant no later than the date of recordation, the final map, or issues the building permit, whichever occurs first. So you can see that the deadline of vacancy has been shifted to the end of the project rather than the start. By doing so, this policy currently diverges from the State Bill 1123 and also allows the developers to target existing viable homes. Just to point out, 61 Park Avenue today is owner occupied. They're moving now, but it's owner occupied. 5073, that house is well-maintained home asset. Yes, the owner did deceased and the family eventually sold the property to a developer, but changing the ownership to a developer does not make the slot vacant. This is legal fiction. So I implore the council to please review, rectify the definition vacancy with a lawyer. And please pause application approval to 61 Par and 1573 Walnut before the eligibility is legal review. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a Campbell resident, and while I support housing development, I also expect the city to follow state law and protect public safety. The city's implementation of Ordinance 2334 creates a serious legal issue in how it defines the term vacant under State Bill 1123. State law defines vacant as a site with no permanent structure unless that structure is abandoned and uninhabitable. Campbell's interpretation instead allows a property to qualify as vacant based on the assumption that structures will be demolished in the future. That's not just a minor distinction, it fundamentally changes eligibility. Ministerial approval under State Bill 1123 is only available if a project qualifies at the time of application. It is not intended to apply to sites that may become eligible later through future demolition. By allowing this interpretation, the city risks approving projects that do not meet the statutory criteria for streamlining. And it also has real public safety consequences. State Bill 1123 eliminates public hearings and notice. In practice, demolition is often the only visible signal to residents that a major development is coming. For example, the proposed 18-unit development at 661 Par and 1573 Walnut would significantly increase density near two elementary schools, including one of the elementary schools that my daughters will be attending in a couple years. And not to mention, these two elementary schools are on streets without sidewalks, and that's what creates the public safety concern. There are unresolved safety concerns related to traffic and pedestrian access. If projects can qualify as vacant before demolition occurs, residents are effectively denied of any meaningful opportunity to become aware of and raise these issues before approval. I urge the city to correct its definition of vacant to align with state law or to provide a clear legal basis for its current position. At a minimum, the city should pause approvals under this interpretation until that issue is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Bonnie Harper.
Hi there. My big thing is about transparency for all the people in Campbell. We are your neighbors. We are not anti-housing. We are asking for basic transparency and the right to be heard. Under Ordinance 2334, by the time a permit appears on the city's portal or a demolition crew arrives, the decision is already complete. No neighbor notice, no appeal, no public meeting. One developer can file multiple adjacent applications with no cumulative review. Buildings up to 3 stories and 35 feet tall can be approved without any design or neighborhood impact, as you saw on the plans there. Per the state law, we understand the city is not obligated to notify neighbors, but we are asking for the council to amend the ordinance to allow neighbor notification before approval and when you've finalized everything. We understand the state limits what you can do. We are not asking you to stop housing. We are asking you to use the discretion that you do have to be transparent, to listen, to make decisions that reflect the whole community, not just the applicants like the builders and things like that. Decisions about our neighborhood should include our neighborhood. We're asking to be partners in shaping our own community.
Thank you. I'd like to call Rudy Riano.
Yeah, hi. I'm a 50-year Campbell resident. I know I look a lot younger than that. Won't violate my 2 minutes. But this SB 1123 it's throwing us all for a curveball. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure it's putting you guys under pressure to figure out these issues. You guys are our last line of defense. We got to figure out, how we deal with this transparently. We got to figure out where the real gray zones are in this stuff, because this is our first wave through this. So we've got to take this seriously and put the right processes in place, put the right rigor and discipline and transparency in place about why decisions are being made, because there's a lot of stuff out there that may be legally okay, but literally, everything lives in the gray zone. I'm directly adjacent to the Steinway proposed thing, which is a total, piece of shit, from my perspective, but it is what it is, and we're going to live with it. I'm a venture capitalist professionally. I deal with change all the time. And so I get it. We got to get some housing done and everything else, but it feels like this stuff is happening in kind of backdoor deals. Nobody really knows what's going on. And, it's literally up to you guys to help us figure out how we get through this thing transparently and literally that the gray zones are well understood and that we figure this out together, because it's a tough one.
Thank you. I'd like to call Gordon Wong.
Hi, how you doing? I want to weigh in on this. I live off of Sunny Oaks. I built my house, it's 4,000 square feet. I've been a local resident for 10 years now. I've also been a business owner, the owner of GKW Architects. I have trained more than 40 people in my office. And I really do like the city. I think it's one of the best places to be. However, what I see in my angle, which I want to advocate for the city and for everybody in the city of Campbell, is when I see these big boxes, these types of projects coming in, I can tell you when I see a good client, when I see a bad client. And I see a lot of clients that have a lot of greed. All of it's fueled by greed. And I kick them out of my office, and I'll see their plans show up here, and I know who they are. So I want to empower the city, empower everybody in this room, anybody in the city of Campbell, to push against that kind of greed and bring in good projects. Robeson, KTGY, those are good names. Those are good projects, good architects. There are good architects out there. Try to advocate with the city, work together to protect this place so we don't just have these projects that are just ballooning everywhere. I mean, I'll draw them, they'll steal my plans and take them somewhere else. Thank you very much.
Hey, gonna give you guys a little bit of a break because pretty much everyone here has said everything that I can think about the housing. The Campbell Community Center flagpole lights are so bright. I go walking by that area about once a week, and I cannot walk past the flagpole without having to shield my eyes. And I have no idea where on the website to email you guys about that. It has just been driving me crazy. And so, and also thank you for hearing all our comments. I know that really, I think my personal beef is with the state of California at the moment, not you guys. And I definitely support the idea of one day I would like to maybe have my own house here. That would be lovely. But I would like it to look nice. That would be nice. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We will refer that matter to the staff to review.
Travis Galdieri.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thanks. I'm Travis Galdieri. I'm actually calling from a work trip in Chicago, but I'm a resident of Campbell. Also here to talk about the SB 1123 housing issue. Many of the points have already been shared, so I just want to reinforce a few more. This law came out in July, and the city of Campbell had an emergency meeting that July. In that meeting, and you can look up the meeting minutes, the planning department acknowledged that vacancy is likely at the time of application. However, because of policy concerns about potential blight, they decided to have an ordinance that says that vacancy be determined later on, after the application. Simply put, it's out of compliance with state law. And I get it. Mayor, you said that with other laws like SB 9, the state laws don't give the cities much liberty to do anything. But in this case, we're not even challenging the state. This is all on the city of Campbell, who decided to have a more liberal definition of vacancy. I've looked up other cities, including Los Angeles, and they state that it has to be at the time of application. So I ask everyone, why would the state law have vacancy as a clause if a developer could just demolish a house and call it vacant? It renders that clause worthless. So my ask here is this: please pause all reviews until this ordinance is fixed, and don't wait until mid-May. You had an emergency meeting in July right after the law passed. We are asking you to have an emergency meeting now to address this issue. If you wait, then you're going to come back and tell everyone that, sorry, these approvals have to go through because they're ministerial and too much time will pass. So listen to your citizens, prioritize this issue, and move it up to the next council meeting so that we can have a fix here before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other cards, I'm sorry, we still have someone online, please.
Did they get to speak before us sitting in here? The people online?
No.
Why was it, I thought there were gonna be a.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I'll be happy to call on anyone who wants to speak, but right now I'm addressing someone who's online.
Amber Galderi?
She's coming home right now, but she's not home yet.
All right, thank you. Is anyone else online?
David Southshore?
I'm here, but I was interested in the multimodal plan item. That's what I signed up for.
Yes, the multimodal plan is on the agenda for later, so if you'll just hang tight.
Got it.
Yes.
Elise Antaya?
Elise, are you present?
Or Elsie?
Anyone else?
Yes, Megan Ward?
Is Megan online?
Okay. And the other two are for item 9. Oh, Megan Ward?
Yeah, I'm here to talk about sidewalks on Campbell,
I'm sorry, what did you want to talk about?
the multimodal thing.
Yes, it's later on the agenda.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, so apparently we have some additional persons who like to speak here. You're welcome to do so. If you care to fill out a card, we would welcome it. It's not required. You may just approach the podium.
Hi. You said something that sparked something to me. You said that the city of Campbell is the first one to be looking into something. I'd like to challenge you to be the first one to stand up for the experience of a child growing up in Campbell. I grew up in Campbell. I lived on Lucott. There was 19 other kids under the age of 18, and I could ride my bike at any time of the day. I have a 5-year-old. We cannot even walk to school currently. So building additional housing with no additional support or infrastructure is my current concern. People do not follow the mandated rules of a stop sign, so let alone adding, I have a house being built 2 houses from me that 6 families plan on sharing. So that's 12 additional cars when we already can't walk 6 houses from our house. And so I challenge you all to protect the experience of children growing up, because the last thing I want is a child to not be able to walk to school. Like, that was a core memory for me, to be able to walk to school. I currently cannot. So if we're building more houses, how do we protect them? You cannot ride your bike on Hacienda currently. So if you put a housing development that is, according to the record, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 10, but how do you additionally ride? Like, you still can't ride your bike. So like, my challenge is to protect the experience of the children, because if we are a city and part of a city is education and part of the city is public workers, but we're not protecting any of those other pieces.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mike, you just filled out a card. Yeah, please.
A friend of mine notified me of a building going in right behind my house, 1995 White Oaks. It was submitted to planning on the 30th of last month. I'm told there's no way to review it. I don't have a problem with their 6, 2.5-story buildings. I don't have a problem with that. They're pulling out a 400-year-old oak tree and putting another tree in its place. And I'm trying to get a hold of the people doing that to negotiate to leave that exact existing oak tree. That's my issue.
Thank you. Dale Luck.
Hello, greetings. I'm here about the 1170 Steinway property, proposed for the development. And I'm just kind of looking at the numbers, and also I highlight this statement where they say that it's going to be the development will conform to the current residential area and be consistent with the whole residential community there, which is absolutely false. They're going from typically about a 10 bedrooms, I think, per half acre to 40 bedrooms per half acre. I just think that it's and also 35 feet, which, and I see that I believe you're gonna have to do exceptions. So I wonder, where do you have to approve these exceptions, going from 2 maximum stories of 2.5 stories to 3 stories? Is that, anyway, thank you. All these exceptions.
Thank you. Again, all of your comments are going to be referred to staff individually, and request the city manager and the staff planning department take a look at these and you know, reply accordingly. So now I'll call on Rebecca Campos.
Good evening, Mayor Furtado and city council members, and my city councilwoman, and Bybee. I appreciate everything that you do here. I am a proud Campbell citizen that moved here as a child in 1960. My mother is still alive at 819 Chapman Drive, living across the street from Capri School. I bought the house next door to her 20 years ago. I challenge anyone to say they love Campbell more than me. So my neighbor, so my issue is to be called or considered, if we talk about opposing growth or anything like that, that we would be what is it, the Indies, not in my backyard. When you live someplace for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, you watch change. You have seen everything happen in your backyard. We are people that have a neighborhood. I was part of the San Tomas Area Association, fought hard to keep Campbell the Orchard City. And now every Saturday, I hear the chainsaws cutting down these beautiful trees that, granted, some of them have to go because they're old and they've been there for 50, 60 years, 70 years. Now, you know, I'm part of that neighborhood I live in is from the forties. But enough is enough. This thing that they're planning on Parr and on Steinway is just for our safety, for our police that are, they're barely, we're at the perimeter. We're in Los Gatos practically. So we need extra consideration, as everyone is asking for tonight, to give us extra time. Give yourself time to study what's gone on, because I pity the people that went to architect school have nothing anymore. They're building horrible things that are houses that we have to see. But now these constructions, I think that we've had enough. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. There's a gentleman in the back.
Hey, my name is Raja Palila. I live on 1216 West Hacienda Avenue. I've been a resident for about since 2018. A lot of you have seen me before. I extremely sympathize with the sentiment of the folks to review the vacancy requirement that are present here. For the larger good, I want to remind my beloved neighbors that the housing element and the general plan update happened for 2 years, and most of what we are seeing today was actually part of the housing element, including the design of the buildings is part of the objective standards. You cannot go against the objective standards to actually build these kinds of houses and things like that. For those 2 years, I attended every community meeting, city council meeting, planning commission meetings, and everything. It's lovely to see so many folks here today, but during that time, it was barely 1 or 2 of us attending all those meetings. So I really request, I remember about like 7-8 years ago, sitting in a house on Walnut Street, discussing about ADUs, whether we should have ADUs or not in the city. If we are going to have ADUs, what should be the permits and all. And suddenly state came up and put in all these stuff, and we couldn't do anything about it. One thing I want to highlight is it's unfair to blame the city or the council or the staff about all this for what's coming from the state. From my perspective, having been very extremely involved in all of this process as a community, the city staff were extraordinary. They always acted fast enough so that things like builder's remedy doesn't kick in. If builder's remedy kick in, people can build 5 floors, 7 floors, right? So those are the kind of stuff that builder's remedy brings in. And in the last few decades, the amount of venture capital that came in and the number of jobs that created, people are traveling all the way from places. So we need housing, but we definitely need to look at, the vacancy requirements and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
No one raised his hand and said, I love Campbell more. You've heard my neighbors, and these are my neighbors, and I love them also. I started out in 1972 as a police officer here in this city, and it became my home. Don Burr saw this young country kid with a college education, and he hired me as a police officer. Our neighborhood is, as we've heard, getting busy. We have our schools. Parents do have issues taking their children to school because of traffic. And what I see in this development at 1070 Steinway is not safe. It's not publicly safe. If we talk about 40 bedrooms, as someone mentioned, the number of cars, the number added traffic, and plus, folks, it's a residential neighborhood. It's not a neighborhood for an apartment complex. And I look at these drafts, and they look like apartment complex. And that's really what I want to share is I appreciate you folks' hard work, and I appreciate my neighbors coming in to express that they want to keep it a Campbell neighborhood. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to everyone here. It sounds like a very complicated issue and something that I'm just getting up to speed, and I just want to thank all the neighbors for putting all the time in to bring this forward. I will say, not at the end, but at the beginning, that it feels like that there's something here that people are extremely concerned about, and I would Definitely like to have a pause on anything that is decided because it seems like there is legal recourse to consider the vacancy option here, and that we should consider that. As a matter of thinking about this for all of you and all of you, you can understand the economics. If you say that you can take any home and knock it down and put 9 on them, then a home that today is worth $1.5 million is worth $3 to $4 million offer to change that into an apartment building. You have 9 homes that go on to the home that cost, they paid 2x for it. So they spent $3 million for the home. They're going to build 9 because they can, and no one can say no. And that will happen next door to you and you and you and you and you and you. And that will happen every second that we sit here. Someone will put in another permit for that until that is not allowed. And that is why I believe that other cities don't have that vacancy. It protects the building that exists as an operating building. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, I will.
Where are you guys on pausing permits? Or what is the process to do that or commentary?
I'll
briefly. Yeah,
You've already spoken.
But yeah, well,
You've already spoken, but
Yeah, I've got a
I'll
question
just
for
tell
you.
you the process. So
No, I got you. Okay. Is there any guidance as to either where we are in pausing the permits until we get to the bottom of this? Or is there guidance from you guys as to what we should be thinking about doing to create that pause? Because it feels like, we're on a slippery slope here. I mean, look at it from our perspective. We're waiting to kind of hear what happens here, with respect to our neighborhoods. So we're a little bit, jaded in the sense that we just need to understand where we stand now. Are we pausing the process? Are we going to have deliberation on these things? And if not, how do we get to there?
thank you. Yes, first of all, I do appreciate all of your very thorough comments and the fact that you came well prepared with details and examples and things of that nature. That's very helpful to us, but it's also helpful to our staff. I would refer the matter to the city manager and your staff, because that's all we can really do tonight. And I will make a special request that if we can move this agenda item up to an earlier meeting, by the next meeting or whatever, if it's possible to do that, I would request that we do so, so that we can move ahead with this. I know it takes some time. You have to, I know it takes some time, and there is already a question being, there are several questions being made to the California State Department of Housing on this matter. I know we're awaiting their reply for one thing, but I would encourage the staff to move this up if at all possible. So again, I thank you all very much. I wish I could offer you at this point in time individual answers, and I look forward to continued participation in that.
Mayor Furtado, we have one more online.
Okay. I've asked several times if there are any more requests, and I've pretty well held it. But now if there's one more, I will allow it, but I've already pretty much closed this off because I invited anyone to speak and there was no one present.
They just registered. Would you like?
Yes, go ahead.
Adam Bookbinder.
Hi, sorry, I just installed this app. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but hearing the comments from my fellow Campbellians, I had to speak up. Last week, I live in some townhomes. I'm raising a daughter here. I live in some townhomes just off of Union, and the other night I heard some shouting. And it turned out there were a pair of tweens beating a homeless woman who is trying to live between the fence and Highway 17. She's living out there because we had discretionary review, because we weren't against housing, we were just against the housing that came up. we just wanted to be cautious. You know, when someone says, I've lived here for 50 years and I've never seen construction like this, the reason why you've never seen construction like this is because we've done everything to put that lady out there. I understand that everybody's worried about parking and about aesthetics, and we have had a general plan process. We've had a multifamily development standards process. We've had a process for all of this. The thing that people are asking for is for things to go back to the way they have been for the last 50 years. And the fruit of that is that rents are, you know, skyrocketing towards $3,000. Nobody can afford a home. People are leaving the state. If you're a school teacher and you think that you notice that people are leaving the state, people are leaving the state because they can't afford to live here. And if we do it, and everybody for the last 50 years has been saying, I don't like it, it's near me, it doesn't look right. And I get it. It's change. Change is scary. But everyone is showing up, and whether they want to or not, they're saying, I think that lady should be living in tent over there where those kids can beat her up. That is the outcome of what everybody is pushing for. That is where we are. That is how we got there. And if we want to keep getting what we've had, we'll keep doing what we've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. With that, again, thank you. And our intent is to certainly get back to you. Thank you. We now move on to item number 6. This is council announcements. I have several announcements here on behalf of the City Council. First of all, the acronym TRUST, TRUST, is a community service that helps Santa Clara County residents during urgent mental health and substance use situations. Call centers and field response teams are available 24 hours, 7 days a week to answer calls for help. Individuals are invited to call 988. Secondly, the registration for summer camp and swim lessons is now available. Please visit the summer preview guide on the city's website at www.campbellca.gov to find out more about these programs. The third announcement is that for the 44th consecutive year, National Arbor Day will be celebrated here in Campbell. The National Arbor Day Foundation has proclaimed the city of Campbell as Tree City, USA. In celebration of this award, the community is invited to participate in the Arbor Day celebration at 10 a.m. on Thursday, April 30th at John D. Morgan Park at the Picnic Area 2. Next, on Friday, April 24th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., History Happy Hour at the Ainsley House will present museum researcher Nick Garcia to discuss how the golden era of the New England whaling became intertwined with California and even Campbell itself, revealing surprise maritime connections that help shape our local history. Registration information can be found at campbellmuseums.com. Next, the Boogie Music Festival draws over 45,000 attendees from across the Bay Area to downtown Campbell each year, and that is coming up soon. Well, actually next month. The event will take place on Saturday, May 16th from 10 to 6 and May 17th from 10 to 5. There are many ways to be a part of this excitement. You can volunteer at the festival, showcase your business with a booth, apply to become a food artisan, a vendor, or join as a festival sponsor. More information can be found at the Campbell Chamber of Commerce website at info.campbellchamber.net. And finally, the skateboard park over at the community center there on Campbell Avenue next to the what was football field will have a special ribbon cutting to celebrate the new skate equipment that has just been installed. It's actually currently open already. And that will be this coming Friday, the 10th of April at 10 a.m. So that is all of the council announcements. We now move to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of those items on the agenda that the council will take as a single item of business unless a member of the council, a member of the staff, or a member of the public would like to pull an item for further discussion. These are items 7.1 through 7.6. Does anyone wish to pull an item for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll request a motion.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Bybee, second by Councilmember Lopez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola, absent. Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. We have no public hearings and introduction of ordinances. And so now we move to items under item number 9, new business. First of all, there is item number 9.1, approving a contract authorizing the city manager to execute the lease purchase agreement for a new special vehicle. However, this item needs to be rebid, and therefore we will pull it from the calendar and reconsider it at another meeting after the appropriate bidding has taken place. So now we will move immediately to item 9.2, the Campbell Multimodal Transportation Plan Project Update. And I'd like to call on, I believe, Tiffany Hudson first to introduce this particular subject. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. As you know, we've been working on the multimodal plan for almost a year now. We're very excited to bring you an update tonight. We're very glad to have Christopher Kidd here with us, who is the project manager from Alta, who's been supporting this effort. So we'll be giving you an update on the plan. We've got a couple of questions for you. This is a key point in the project to get feedback on the draft recommendations for bike and ped network, as well as have a discussion about these 5 to 6 concept designs that will be included in the plan. So I'll hand it over to Christopher, who will be giving the update, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tiffany. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you so much. Good evening, members of the council, mayor, members of the public. My name is Christopher Kidd. I work for a company called Alta Planning and Design, and we are very blessed and lucky to be leading up the Campbell Multimodal Transportation Plan. We also have in attendance Alex Shore from Catalyze SV, who's part of our project team. Just wanted to recognize him as well. And we're very interested to give you an update on what we've done so far in the past year and where we'll be heading into the future and how we can make sure that that the council is able to appropriately weigh in on these items. For our agenda today, we wanted to provide an introduction to this project. We had gone to City Council this past year in the fall, but we want to share with you what we've been doing since then, really reiterating our plan goals, what we're trying to build this plan around, as well as provide a summary of the outreach engagement that we did this past fall. We also wanted to briefly share some of the analysis that we've conducted to help complement that public outreach, and then to share an overview of our recommendations, which really were developed kind of as a fusion between the analysis we conducted and the input that we got from the public. We wanted to share our plans for the upcoming phase of our round 2 outreach, which begins today, as well as getting direct input from the City Council on both our recommendations and our next steps moving towards concept designs. So to introduce the plan, why are we doing a multimodal plan in the first place? And really it is a plan meant to help support a growing city and maintain quality of life for people. We know that Campbell is growing. We've heard a lot about that tonight already, and about the challenges that come along with growth. And really one way that we can help to manage that is to make sure that our transportation network is safe and functional for all of our users, as well as providing as many options as possible for how people can move around. So that when people are able to leave their cars at home for short trips, that benefits everybody and helps maintain quality of life within the community. We also need to look forward into the future about how we make our investments in the transportation network. And part of developing a multimodal transportation plan helps to prioritize the types of projects that the city would want to move forward, but also to help make them more competitive for future grant funding sources, so that there's ways to multiply the money that you have put up into your projects, into your city streets from other places, especially in times when you may have a constrained budget. So talking about what the multimodal transportation plan is, after we talk about why we're doing it, is that it really is the Campbell's first citywide plan for improving mobility. The city has a transportation element within their general plan, but outside of that, there's no comprehensive citywide plan about how transportation is addressed. This involves a 2-year planning process after winning a Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant to fund this work. And the focus of this work, while it is multimodal, we're trying to focus on improvements and investments for walking, biking, and taking transit. And what the result of this really will end up providing is a roadmap for city staff and for the city so that there can be a higher level degree of confidence in what types of projects get moved forward and why, and how they're prioritized to fit the needs of the city as well as the needs of the public. So briefly, our project schedule is a project we started back in June of last year, where, as I'd mentioned before, we went to the City Council in August to provide an update as the beginning of the project. We did a phase of public outreach this past fall. Using the input that we got, we developed a series of project recommendations that were vetted through city staff. And here we are again, City Council, getting ready to take those recommendations back to the public. We'll be then moving through past after that phase ends. We're moving into the developing concept plans, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in this presentation, and then coming back to the City Council again for both the draft plan and the final plan on its way to adoption, hopefully. The feedback is just, and we'll be talking about this later on in the presentation, but the feedback and the input that we really want to focus on tonight are getting high-level feedback about the vision and goals and the network recommendations for the plan, generally speaking. But we also really want to make sure that we're having a detailed discussion with City Council about how we look towards the development of concept design. So when we say concept designs, these are our high-level feasibility documents, an example shown here from the City of Hayward that really helps to queue up and prioritize the most important projects coming out of this plan to be competitive for future grant funding. So this really gets the city a head start into being able to realize these plans and capture available regional, state, and federal money to make those projects real. So with that, I wanted to provide a quick overview of the work that we've done over the past year with our outreach in the first round and our analysis work. So starting with our first round of outreach, it spanned the late summer into early fall of last year. We had an online web map available. We held a series of different events, pop-up events, workshop events. We held mobility audits, doing a biking tour and a walking tour in downtown Campbell. We did coordination through the Safe Routes to Schools program to ensure that we were getting the word out to all schools and families throughout the area, as well as convened a technical advisory committee of interested city stakeholders, as well as agency partners around the Campbell community. As part of that, we were able to engage over 1,500 residents in receiving over 1,800 public comments. And this map on the right here shows the density of comments that we received through that process across the city of Campbell and sometimes outside city boundaries. For a brief overview of the things that we heard and what we learned during this outreach phase is that safety is the top priority of Campbell residents. Traffic safety is the thing that we need to be focusing on the most. And when we talk about traffic safety, we really talk about pedestrians primarily. How do we make a safer and easier network for pedestrians to be able to move around the city? But we also heard a lot about interest in improving bike access, especially towards downtown and the Prune Yard and connecting to neighboring cities. We also had heard a lot about the major streets, Campbell Avenue, Hamilton, Winchester, and that those are the places where people have the most challenges, they have the most problems, and there's the most constraints there about creating the right types of solutions. And that we really heard that clearly from the public that those were areas they wanted us to focus on. And as part of our round one outreach, we included targeted outreach to low-income communities, as well as to Spanish-speaking communities. And we heard that from the public that was something they appreciated and they wanted to see continued into the future. Complementing that outreach work, we also did a series of analysis. And I won't kind of go through and explain everything that's in here, but just to say, we did a very comprehensive look at trying to understand the different roadway conditions. We looked at safety with collisions. We looked at transit access and where transit ridership was the highest and different patterns of ridership or for transit. We looked at access and movement within our equity communities within Campbell, as well as looking at where things like short driving trips taking place, short driving trips that could potentially be taken by other modes, by walking, biking, taking transit, as well as looking at what we call the bicycle level of traffic stress, which tries to understand where are the barriers that exist that deter people from riding a bike today. And this is just a very brief overview of kind of what some of those different analyses look like, just to give just a little flavoring of the different types of things that we learn and that we tried to understand when going into developing our project recommendations. Some of the key takeaways is that we learned that 25% of driving trips in Campbell are under 6 miles. And there's some areas of Campbell where more than 40% of driving trips are under 3 miles. So those are trips where there's a high potential for people to be able to take those in different ways. And we need to dig into and understand what is deterring people from taking some of those trips, not all of them, but some of them by alternate modes. Because by doing so, we can help improve things like safety and quality of life within the community. We also know that while the percentage of people who walk and bike to work, 3%, is very low, that when we look at our collisions and our collision records, more than half of serious and fatal collisions that take place in Campbell involve somebody that's walking and biking. And so when we think about safety and putting a safety lens on our work, those are the vulnerable users that we need to be thinking about for how we create solutions. And when we look at pedestrian collisions in particular, they're grouped close to transit stations, they're grouped close to schools and to local services on some of our commercial corridors. We also looked at our transit analysis, looking at where the transit ridership is highest, understandably at some of our light rail stations, but also right around the Campbell Community Center. And that we understand through our analysis that some of the major streets like Hamilton, even while they sometimes have bike lanes on them, they still present a very high barrier of stress to people riding bikes. And that even when we have a regular bike lane on a street like that, it still is something that would deter a lot of folks, normal folks, from being willing to ride a bike there. So that all then comes together in the development of our draft recommendations. And how we got to those is we looked at all of the past plans that have been adopted, both within the county and regionally and within the city. We looked at the public input that was provided, as well as the analysis that we did. We combined all three of those to develop a series of project recommendations that went through city staff review, and we are bringing them to you tonight. Those include our vision and goals, recommendations for our pedestrian network, for the bicycle network, and what we call recommendations for safety corridors, the locations where we're seeing the vast majority of collisions taking place, as well as improvements for transit service. So we started with a vision statement. And I'll just read this vision statement out, is that the city of Campbell will create a safe, comfortable, and efficient multimodal transportation system that is accessible to all residents and visitors to the city. Investments in multimodal transportation system will improve quality of life, enhance economic vitality, improve safety, provide more mobility options to all, and help the city achieve its climate goals. And really, we wanted to set that vision out up front and then allow all of the work and the recommendations that we developed to really trickle down from that place and have that be kind of the guiding vision of how we approach our recommendations that we develop. And those start with our draft goals. And those were goals that we brought to the public during the first phase of public outreach to get input on the appropriateness of them. And really the first goal, as we mentioned from the public input that we got at the top, is roadway safety. But complementing that are things like improving our network cohesiveness and connectivity, being able to connect our networks a little bit better for multiple ways of getting around so that people can have more choices. Also pursuing equity to ensure that the investments that we make can directly impact the people who would benefit the most from those investments. We also want to ensure that the investments that we make help the city achieve its climate goals and improve public health, as well as develop a strategy that can improve the city's fiscal outlook by making the city more competitive for grant application funding. So moving then into some of the network recommendations that we developed a series of pedestrian network recommendations where there are there are recommendations at many different intersections where really focusing especially on locations where there's the highest volumes of pedestrian traffic, as well as the locations where there's the most collisions taking place. But we also have a series of limited recommendations for sidewalk improvements. And really that was looking at a very strategic set of gap closures where there's very small gaps in the sidewalk network, where there's an opportunity to more fully connect, as well as we understand, there are some neighborhoods that, that have area plans that don't allow sidewalks. And so we wanted to respect those requirements, but still find opportunities to create, safe and dedicated walking spaces for people to be able to move through those neighborhoods in a more comfortable and confident way. We also developed recommendations for the draft bicycle network, which includes upgrades and studies for some of the major streets. A lot of these major streets, we recognize that there's a lot of competing needs on them, and that the conditions for bicyclists today are not ideal, but that we don't have an exact perfect solution today, and that it demands kind of further study for us to understand the trade-offs that are involved. But in addition to that, we have a series of other recommendations, including new bicycle and pedestrian overcrossings to really help create better east-west connections. With the Los Gatos Creek Trail, you have wonderful north-south connections, but it's actually very difficult to move east to west in a safe and comfortable way. And on a lot of those, that stems to having some pretty substantial barriers, like the San Tomas Expressway or Los Gatos Creek, to be able to make those trips without having to go onto a major street. We've also created recommendations for a parallel network of bike-friendly neighborhood streets as an alternative to some of these major roadways, as well as some projects for some new shared use paths, where it's an off-street facility shared between bicycles and pedestrians, like the Los Gatos Creek Trail, most notably one that would go along the side of the San Tomas Expressway, as identified in the Santa Clara Countywide Active Transportation Plan. Complementing our bicycle and pedestrian recommendations, we also have draft safety corridors, and these are the locations where we've identified the vast majority of serious and fatal injury collisions, identifying what's called a high injury network of locations that should have particular focus for safety, with a special emphasis really on managing speed. So, we know from safety, from kind of the safe systems approach, that the higher travel speed gets, the likelihood that someone in a collision, a pedestrian collision, that decreases exponentially as that travel speed goes up. And so when we look at these types of corridors, we want to understand, how do we manage speeds both on our regular arterials so that we're still moving traffic, because that's one of the primary purposes of those arterials, but doing so in a way that can help to manage speeds appropriately and effectively to balance the safety needs. But also looking at some of our local roadways and local corridors where we can have a greater focus on lowering travel speeds and creating safer spaces within communities. And lastly, among kind of our mapped recommendations is we have transit corridor recommendations that we've tried to align with VTA's long-term plans. We're really trying to identify and understand where are some high-frequency routes, high-frequency transit stops, where we should really try to work with VTA to focus on how do we provide better amenities for some of those stops, how do we create better connections to those stops for first and last mile connections for people accessing the transit. Because of course, anyone who rides a bus is also a pedestrian. And another set of recommendations that we've developed are suggested types of programs. And these are just examples of types of programs that could be developed. But the city of Campbell already runs a really robust number of programs to support transportation and walking and biking. But we look at them through these different lenses of engineering programs, encouragement, education, things like the Safe Routes to Schools program, but also looking at enforcement and evaluation, understanding when we build a project, how effective is it in improving safety? How effective is it in improving walking and biking trips within a community? So after going through all of those recommendations, which I understand is a lot, I did want to kind of share with you our upcoming plans for our second round of engagement before talking a little more in depth about our concept plans. So the area that we're really focused on with the public with this upcoming round of engagement is really understanding, out of all those recommendations that we've just shared, what's missing? What did we get wrong? What needs to change? And I think in addition to that, we also want to understand from the public which projects that we've recommended should be prioritized the most. Because what this comes down to is there's all of the projects that we've identified, the city will not be able to build all of those even within 20 years. And so a really big part of this process is trying to understand which need to be prioritized the most. And that's reflecting the needs of the city, the needs of the community, as well as things like looking at safety outcomes. And so how we're getting that input in this upcoming phase is we have a web map tool that is available. It's on the city's project website right now, where people can review all of the project recommendations we've developed. They can like it, they can dislike it, they can leave comments on it. We'll also be doing targeted promotion around the city kind of throughout this month into next month, holding a series of pop-up events, one at the Prune Yard, one at the Farmers Market in downtown Campbell. And we'll be holding an in-person community workshop, actually not in April, but just at the beginning of May at the Campbell Community Center. And so once we get past this current phase of public engagement, our next steps really are to focus on prioritization, is to take the results of that public input, as well as a lot of other inputs we've been pulling together to try to understand how do we prioritize this project list for what comes out on top. We'll then take some of those top projects and begin working on developing concept designs, which we'll be talking about right after this. And then ideally taking those back to the city council in the form of the draft plan, where the public will still be able to comment on that draft plan. We're planning to hold another community workshop in the fall when we release that draft plan, as well as bringing the final plan for adoption next February. So now I wanted to move over to talking again about concept designs and how we want to ensure that we're getting really strong direction from City Council on this topic. So the plan, as we've scoped it, as the work we've scoped, is that we'll be including 5 to 6 concept designs that could range in scale and complexity. If we're designing a single intersection, we can get pretty detailed. If we're designing a 2-mile long corridor, there's a little less detail that we can put into that. But each of these we're hoping to develop into what we call a grant-ready package, that it will include things like cost estimates for future phases of the project and a schedule to really help the city understand what the impact is and to also make those more competitive for the application process. And so for the requested city input that we want to seek tonight is that we want to get direction from the city on where we should be focusing our work when we look at concept designs. So, based on community feedback that we'd received in the previous phase, this could be focused on safety improvements with a focus on our major streets. It could include improving access to downtown and the Prune Yard. It could include focusing on our schools and safe routes to school projects, as well as park access, which was another big theme that we heard from the community. We could also be looking at focusing on creating better first and last mile connections to transit, whether the light rail stations or some of the high ridership bus stops, or looking at how do we create stronger and broader regional connections with the regional bike network through some of VTA's work and the county active transportation plan. And as I mentioned, some of these concepts can range in scale and complexity. Some of our projects could end up being very small, or what we sometimes call a quick build projects that can be done with sometimes temporary materials or deployed very quickly. Sometimes you can put them out onto the street to be able to understand the impact that they have before you go back and then build it with concrete. But others may be much more capital intensive. Building an overcrossing of the San Tomas Expressway, it's going to be a very expensive project. We could have designs that are focused in specific areas like downtown, or we could instead try to spread those designs out to represent and capture different areas of the city. And also one area that we want to ensure that we're getting good feedback on from City Council is a project that has lower potential impacts around things like the potential to remove parking or potential to cause congestion. but it provides a lesser benefit in terms of things like safety or improving accessibility for walking and biking? Or do we want to focus on things that may have higher impacts, but can really have a transformative effect in terms of safety and the ability of people to move around in lots of different ways? So I guess to wrap things up, we're seeking input from the City Council tonight. We're getting broad feedback around our vision and goals and our network recommendations. I think particularly from the lens of anything that's a really big red flag that maybe we got wrong, or something that really we should be looking at prioritizing and that you've heard is important to your constituents. But then we also want to ensure that we're getting really detailed input from the City Council, again, on our concept designs, to ensure that that when we bring those concept designs back to you, when we have the draft plan ready this fall, that it's not something that's a big surprise, that it's really something that you're expecting, that you can feel like you can support, to really line those up for successful grant applications into the future. So with that, I wanted to thank you for sitting through a very long presentation, but also have an opportunity to hear from yourselves and from the public as well, and to engage in the discussion around this project. Thank you.
Likewise, Christopher, thanks very much for a very thorough presentation. I appreciate that. Thank you. First, I'll ask if there are questions by members of the City Council.
Yeah, just outstanding. I love this. I love the audits. You saw me at both audits, so that was just fantastic on those. But and then I have several detailed comments that I'll make. But just a question on McGlincy. It showed that there was a action that you're making on McGlincy. Can you explain what you're thinking of on McGlincy? Yeah, and I might be catching you off guard with a specific road.
Do you know where?
You know, I'll bring it up as a specific comment.
Okay.
The feedback on that, because it'd be great to address it. I don't know how you're going to address it, but it'd be great to address it. So I'll bring it back as a specific comment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do my best to try to know every street for each city that I work with, but there's sometimes where the specific one kind of catches me unawares.
Just as a point of information, McGlincy Lane is off of Union Avenue, and it's been primarily an industrial area, but the Campbell Technology Parkway has been rezoned for housing, and there is a lot of planned housing. And
Yes.
Likewise, there's a lot of concern amongst the business interests there about a lot of pedestrians and so on,
okay.
because they have big vehicles and they're concerned. Now, I'm sure all of that will be addressed in the EIR and so on, but just as a point of information, that's a little bit
that's
where it is and a little bit about the problem.
That's helpful context. I believe for that location, we had recommended a pedestrian walkway, which is kind of a halfway of recognition that, this is a space where you don't have quite the conditions to be able to build a full sidewalk, but you still want to be able to create safe conditions for pedestrian travel. So that would include having some sort of rubberized barrier or a paint striping to kind of create a dedicated space.
You might be referring to figure 2 in the staff report draft bike network recommendations. It shows McGlincy Lane as a study corridor, meaning there isn't any specific improvements recommended yet. It is a corridor identified for future recommendations, right?
No, I believe that actually was identified as a bike route.
Okay.
So within the bike network, that was identified as a bike route, which would just mean not taking away any space on the roadway, but instead just having signage and potentially we call sharrows, the shared lane markings on the roadway, which really helps to create more awareness about the presence of bicycles on that roadway. And so I think for that location in particular, understanding that there are industrial uses, we didn't think that having something more robust than that would necessarily be appropriate.
I'll make more comments in my direct feedback.
It appears we don't have any questions at the moment, any further questions. So we will now, first of all, ask for public comments. Does any member of the public wish to make a comment on this matter? Do we have anyone online?
Yes, we have 4 people online.
Okay, we have 4 people online, so please go ahead and call on them.
So the first is Megan Ward.
I don't have any comments at this time.
Next would be Trudy LaFrance.
Yes, I was not sure about a couple of things. One, I had filled out the survey about Union Avenue from Bascom to Campbell Avenue, and I wasn't sure if that's what you were talking about when you said you would just put sign or markings saying share the road with bikes, because people travel very, very quickly. Or, you know, they're often speeders that go over the 30 miles an hour signage. And I think part of it has a bike lane and part of it doesn't. And I think that's hard on bikers when you just have that 1 mile to get up to Pruneyard and then get over to downtown Campbell. And I think you may want to try and do something better about bike safety on Union Avenue. Also, pedestrian pathways, was that what you were mentioning? Maybe rubberized or doing some kind of striping or something? And I do support the overcrossing at San Tomas because it is kind of dangerous to get to Los Gatos Creek Trail from our side of Campbell to cross over to the east side. And I do support sidewalks on Kirtner. I think that is very, very important because of the traffic, especially if they do some more development on our side of Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a comment at this time on any of those comments? I mean, I just wondered if.
So maybe we should finish the public comments and then we can.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Kristen.
Next would be David Sestjord.
Hi, thank you. David Southjord. I live on one of the small cul-de-sacs off of Dallas Drive, and I'd like to echo what the last speaker said, and we're not organized, but appreciate her comment that the sidewalks on Kirtner have been really, the lack of sidewalks is really a very major thing, I think, for many people in our neighborhood. I mean, we raise children here, and, you know, the thought of them walking to Bagby or Price elementary or middle school, you know, they'd be walking in the mud after the rain just to get from our house to Bascom. And it's, you know, people walk more and more in the neighborhood. So I also wanted to express appreciation for what's shown in terms of the sidewalks on Dallas and going out Stonehurst and to Union on Cambrian. You know, we have a board and care around the corner from us, and when I moved here for a number of years, my mother was in a similar facility, and she would visit, and even pushing her around on a wheelchair on the streets, you know, without any sidewalk, and with cars parked, you know, you're pushing a wheelchair or a stroller, you know, on the travel side of vehicles that are parked along the curb. We really do need some consideration for safety for people walking for exercise, walking their dogs, or people trying to get to the grocery store or to school. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Thomas Hibner.
Thomas, did you say?
Yes, Thomas Hibner.
Didn't realize I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm relatively new to this plan. I live on Cambrian Drive, and it was unclear to me what a pedestrian walkway entailed. If it was just marking on the street, we don't have sidewalks. And when we petitioned to be incorporated by Campbell, I recall that there was some sort of communication that we wouldn't be required to have sidewalks. And if we do end up with these pedestrian walkways, does that preclude parking on our street where these walkways are painted or whatever they entail? I do support having sidewalks on Camden because that's always been a challenge when I'm biking to get to the creek trail. Somewhat dangerous in that area. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak on the matter? All right, we'll close the public hearing and return the item to council for further discussion.
Thank you, staff, for the not just the great presentation, but all the incredible community outreach effort, and certainly one of the most robust efforts I can remember hearing about. So it's great to have that truly representative community feedback. I think what I'm hearing so far is right in line with where we should be. In particular, the focus on both safety, access, pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, all those things. For a long time, I felt that's one of the major shortcomings with our wonderful city, is just that in particular places, given how much of it is so walkable and how many amenities there are so close by, and that is something that we continue to hear that attracts people here. There's just an opportunity to do a lot more. So I'm interested in hearing that. And the second one of something I appreciate about the focus is being the way you put it, being grant ready. And I think of it as just we can't do everything. All the lines that we saw on that map, it's a great vision, but in terms of just prioritizing within the relatively short to medium term where we're going to move, I think it is would be ready for those grants. In addition to something that I think, practically speaking, would already be incorporated within that, but to coordinate that with where else in the city do we have other planning processes. So major one that jumps to mind is all the work, the multiple projects that are going along Hamilton, and all the planning work that is going there. So I just pull that as one example. It's obviously in the plan and it's accounted for. But I think that's something, the more intersection we can have with work that's already going on and where grant funding can potentially support that, I think the better. But I think it's completely in the right direction, really critical work. I do look forward to this being a tool to help us get more funding. So really look forward to seeing it continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So I got a bit to give. So just I'm really excited about this. Just fantastic work that's been done on this. Just from a broader level, the San Tomas bike path is that'd be fantastic to get that, because that could really extend out into other areas. Again, coming back to Campbell Village, as I've said from the beginning, we're taxed and trapped. Tax is another topic that I've brought up before, but trapped in that we can't get out other than in a car. We can't walk safely, certainly can't bike safely. So really want to, and as you know, or we'll make some comments later, but as Rod Dearden told me, it was in county hands for too long. So it's going to be a struggle for us to improve on it. But I really want us to be able to focus on this. It looks like you're talking about at Bascom and Union, there's a planned work at the light there. And that's you know, yeah, it just is terrifying to make a left-hand turn at that, which I have to do all the time. And anybody in Campbell Village would have to. So really appreciate taking a look at that. The Dallas Avenue, you've got the bend that you're getting over to Kirtner. The bend is always dangerous. I'd encourage you to, which it'd have to have some serious traffic calming. I can't even drive that. I don't drive it because it's scary. I would consider looking at Salerno, going from Dallas to Salerno to Kirtner to, and then I can't remember the one that goes south from when Dallas hits Kirtner. Look at using Salerno for that instead of doing the bend on Dallas Avenue. Just might make it easier. Yeah, and then right at getting across Camden from Irwin to Parsons, there's you're playing Frogger trying to get across that. I do that often, but there needs to be something that happens there. The Union Bike Lane, that's from the 60s, you know, and Adam and I have both talked about the lip that sits there, and it's not usable for anything. The Kirtner sidewalks, you've heard from 3 of the constituents from Campbell Village. I totally want to see that happen because that's a main artery. It's an arterial street. There's always people walking on it. That we need to make that happen. So great work to see that. And then I've brought this up several times, just to at least have somebody look at a bike path from Edith Morley, Campbell Tech Park to Campbell Avenue on the east side of 17. Just that, right now there's a 10-foot Caltrains wall. I have to believe there's 3 or 4 feet on the other side of that that's available for a bike lane, and then that would give us access from there into the area. So, again, I'll close again. Campbell Village is trapped. We need to be released. So, from a biking and pedestrian standpoint, so, great work, terrific work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So 2 things that rise to the top for me would be the safety and ease of walking. Kirtner's been addressed as needing sidewalks. The McGlinchey area in itself, I think, needs to be evaluated and upgraded and taking into consideration the safety of pedestrians that are going to be walking in that area now that we're going to be building housing. It's not a very user-friendly, walkable area. So whatever can be done to mitigate some of that. And then the other thing that that struck me was the network cohesiveness and the connectivity. And I think 2 or 3 places that come to mind would be along our major corridors, along Bascom, along Winchester, because they connect into San Jose, Los Gatos, and also Lee Avenue. I don't know how much emphasis or discussion is happening with Lee Avenue, but I think that might be an area for enhanced bike lanes and bike safety.
Thank you. I actually left off one point. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to give you you had asked for priority on your priority list. So thank you. I got too into the weeds on my comments, but I always do that. But I did take a look at your list, and from a priority standpoint, you've got the list in the right priority. Safety improvements. We have to be safe when we're doing. The statistic that you gave on the 3% is the majority of that's where the injuries are coming from, the 3% walkers. So safety improvements, improving access to downtown. I talked about the east side of 17, safe routes to school and access to parks. I'd love to be able to ride my bike over to Edith Morley, which is only about 200 yards away. It's just, I can't ride my bike there. And then the fourth with the last mile transit connections, that's important, in the regional bikeways. I think your San Tomas gets that, so appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. My own comments focus on primarily safe routes. So I would like to see us prioritize safe routes to schools, safe routes to parks, and safe routes to neighborhood stores and so on. Sometimes if we want people to walk, hopefully they're willing to walk to the store if it's a safe route to do so. And also, as you know, of course, the Creek Trail is very popular. So obviously if we have a safe routes for those persons accessing the Creek Trail at various locations, I think that's important. And then finally, I know it's kind of penciled in, but I would hope that we would go beyond penciling it in. There is a proposal to put another pedestrian Highway 17 overcrossing from the corner of Campbell Technology Parkway, where there'll be a lot of houses and a lot of people and maybe a lot of children, so that would divert a lot of pedestrian and bicycle riders from having to go down McGlincy to Union and so on. If we could, it's very expensive. It's not like something we can just plan on our budget that simply, hopefully, and it would require approval of Caltrans and a variety of agencies, but it'd be great if that someday that could happen as well. So that's where I'd like to see, priority routes and access to recreation and community services. So
I think Mayor, the proposal, the suggestion that I was making of the east side of Campbell Avenue was specifically to be able to relieve the pedestrian traffic coming out of Campbell Tech at a 1/10 the cost and probably 1/10 the time to build the transfer, the overcrossing. We still need the overcrossing, but I think the bike lane going up the east side of 17 I'll give a much quicker answer.
Sure. I think those are pretty much our comments. Any comments on your part or any further things you'd like from us?
We just want to thank you for the thorough feedback this evening. We really appreciate it. It's very important to us to have your input as well as the rest of the community. So I just want to take one last moment to remind everyone that the project website, campbellca.gov/multimodal, has an update on the project. It has a link to the web map that we mentioned, and it's available now, so the community can go ahead and start liking, unliking, and adding comments.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Tiffany, for your work, Christopher, for yours. Thank you to our Public Works staff and our traffic engineer and our community development director, and actually all the staff who contribute to this. So with that, I don't think any further action is necessary on our part. So we'll close this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10, we have no unfinished business, and we now go to council committee reports. Do members of the council have committee reports?
Well, I attended a couple things. I attended the SAVACA meeting last week, a legislative subcommittee meeting of where we forget the name of the bill, but we took a letter or took a position of support for 922. The education subcommittee met this afternoon, and we discussed some priorities and some discussion topics meetings. And I also participated in the Bunnies and Bonnets Parade, and I want to thank Brooke and Amy from the DCBA for their coordination of that event. It's not an easy event to coordinate with all the people that are participating, so thank them. And that's it.
Thank you, Ann. Terry?
Yeah, I attended the League of California Cities, the Housing, Community, and Economic Development, where we reviewed several legislative items to give feedback to the authors of those bills, and it was a good discussion. And actually walked to it. So I walked to the light rail, took the light rail to Amtrak, took Amtrak down to Costa Mesa, And I've had to Uber the last section, but it was a good trek that way. I attended the DCBA meeting, and the economic development manager is doing a great focus to respond. We get a lot of questions on outside of what Campbell downtown is and Campbell business is really and Campbell Council can really address. But economic development manager does a great job of focusing on Campbell topics. Attended the Bunnies and Bonnets with my wife and granddaughter, so they both had a terrific time. And I want to do a tribute and shout out to the unwavering inspiration and dedication to public transportation by Rod Deardon. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Sergio.
Thank you. We had our meeting of the VTA Board of Directors and a number of items, including one of them, something that's relevant for Campbell, which was an update on what's known as transit signal priority. And this is making sure that buses have a little bit more priority as they're going through stoplights. Really, one of the biggest improvements you can make to speed up the system, and just has a lot of knock-on effects after. And I just mentioned that because Campbell recently received funding, and in fact is one of the first in the county to receive such funding. So you've got other cities and my colleagues on the board looking at us and wondering how they can get in on it. But it's a testament to the great work done by our staff. Also just wanted to mention, and you can read about this more online, or I'm happy to share offline as well. But there's also a proposal that was moved forward at that meeting, which was an initial referral. It will need to be brought back ultimately to the board of directors of ETA for adoption, similar to our process. But regarding prohibiting ICE from using property that is owned by VTA that is not open to the public. And so I just mentioned that if that's of interest to colleagues or staff. And similarly, I was really just heartbroken by the passing this past week of Rod Deardon Sr., and I wanted to see if we could adjourn in his memory after council reports.
Yeah, Sergio, I thought we had a immigration topic coming up on the agenda, which my understanding that would be where we would be talking about ICE at that point. So I would totally be supportive of that, to include that in that discussion.
Yeah, not getting an ours, just wanted to mention that VTA had this come forward and folks can find more information.
Thank you. I'll just add my comments on the passing of Rod Deardon, longtime resident, member of the community, member of the Board of Supervisors, very dedicated to his work for many years. Of course, transportation was of special interest and concern to him. He was involved with model railroads and just a variety of things. Headed up the Minetta Transportation Institute at San Jose State, was responsible really for founding that particular institute and naming it in honor of the late Congress member and member of presidential staff, Norm Minetta. And so, yes, I would like to honor Ron by adjourning the meeting in his honor. Thank you all for attending tonight.